What's up, everybody? Welcome to Brandon's Space. It's the podcast about a playlist. I'm Jonathan Beardsley.
And I am Brandon May.
Welcome to the first of our Album of the Year episodes for 2023. Today we will be covering EDM and we will be covering pop later on this week, so be sure to keep an eye out for that one as well. Starting with EDM, though, I think it was a pretty good year overall, man. We had a lot of really good releases. Definitely more good releases than we had last year, for my taste at least, but not quite as many as we had in 2021. How are you feeling about EDM in 2023 in general?
You know, man, I think it's funny if the same albums that came out in these same exact albums came out in 2015, I think my tastes would just be so different than they are today. And I think for my taste, we got a lot of great music this year. I think there's a lot of trends in the dance world right now, and I think I think that some of them are very interesting. Yeah, I think overall it's been a great year. Great year for dance.
We'll dig into some of those trends as we go through our lists here. You and I can always tell how great a year has been by how hard it is to cut albums from our best of list. Right. And last year I had trouble picking 5 great albums. Yep. This year it was very hard for me to narrow it down to 5 great albums. Did you have a similar problem this year?
You know, yeah, I did. And then when I cut it down to 5, I had difficulty ordering them. So,
yep. Yeah, very much same. And there's some categories I feel very definitive about the order, and some categories you could say them in any order on any different day, and I'd probably agree, you know?
Right, exactly.
Man.
Lots of good music.
It is, man, and I'm excited to dive in. So let's start with our top 5s. Brandon, first of all, what is your EDM album of the year for 2023?
My 2023 album of the year for electronic dance music is going to be Feathers and Bones by Mr. Rodriguez Jr.
As if that was ever in doubt. Actually, the Chemical Brothers did release an album this year, so I guess it was a little bit in doubt, but we'll talk about that in a second. What makes Feathers and Bones by Rodriguez Jr. your EDM album of the year?
It is, in my opinion, the most put together album that I think encompasses so many different styles while staying into the same style. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense, and especially as it relates to Rodriguez Jr.'s discography, not just dance music as a whole. But I get what you're saying, yeah.
Right. It hits all of the notes for me. It hits that
quite literally.
Yeah, it hits that. There's a couple of techno moments on there. It's subdued, but it's there. There's lots of deep house. There's some ambient on there. There's fucking crazy bass lines. There are subdued bass lines. There's melodies out the wazoo.
A little bit of trance.
There's a little bit of trance. There's beautiful guest vocals by a number of different artists, but most notably Lizette. Lizette. I went back to this album so many times this year that it was. I think this was always in my top spot. The other 4 are the ones that were difficult to categorize for me.
Yeah, man, I agree. My top one was the one I never had to question, and I feel like the other 4 were very much the ones I had to question.
Right.
My EDM album of the year for 2023 is Quest for Fire by Skrillex, which it was, I believe, at the halfway point this year as well.
I knew it.
Of course you did, dude. This one dropped back in February. It's been very heavy in my rotation ever since. And I said that I've never heard a dance album quite like it. I still stand by that all these months later. He really set the bar high with this one. We got a Missy feature. We got a Porter feature. We got Rumble, which is an all-timer. It's a perfect dance album for me, man. I know you didn't like Too Bizarre when the album dropped, but It doesn't hold this album back from being a 10 in my opinion. So with our obvious picks out of the way, what is the rest of your top 5, starting with 2 or in any order you'd like to give them?
I mean, these are all, again, like I said, it was really hard to kind of put them into categories, and depending on how I feel that fucking day, it's going to be different. But my number 2 is actually going to be Quest for Fire by Skrillex. It really is as close to perfect as you can get for a Skrill album.
Exactly.
My
for a Skrillex album. Yes.
I know, yeah. My third is the Chemical Brothers, For That Beautiful Feeling. I listened to this again today. It hits it. I really like it when the brothers get a little hip hop in them, and I think they really did a good job structuring an album here.
I enjoy that part as well.
Yeah. My fourth favorite album this year is going to be Dead Mouse and Cascades KX5.
Hmm.
I have listened to this album a ton of times. It's a lot of fun. It's both of their styles done so well together, and it really does hit a number of different spots.
Agreed.
And then my fifth favorite album of the year is going to be Surgeons. What's the name of that album? Surgeons Crash Recoil.
Okay.
Just a masterclass in techno. It goes. It does it, bro. He really did it. Surgeon this year and last year, I believe. I'm not sure if he did it the year before, but it's Surgeon, Roadhad, and Speedy J. They do a 6-hour mix at Amsterdam Dance Event every year,
Yep.
and it's not a mix. It is live improvisational techno, and the man he's a surgeon. Like, I think he picked his name so well because he's so precise with everything that he does. I
Yeah.
mean, just starting with that opening track, Oak Bank, and the way that track just like progresses so seamlessly, it really hit the nail. What about you, man? What are your last four
Well,
on your top
first of all,
five?
that's a great top five, man. Very, very, very Brandon. I knew there'd be I knew there'd be Chemical Brothers and Rodriguez Jr. in the top five, no matter what. I'm
Of course.
surprised by Surgeon, but I love you picking that. I think we got some overlap on the rest. So the rest of my top five, starting with two, is Last Lane's Perfect World. I just think it's an incredible album.
It was a hard one
Everything
to
they've
cut.
done on these first two albums for me has just been incredible. That's going to get the runner-up spot. Third for me, I'm going to go K5 with their self-titled. Much better than I thought it was when we reviewed it. Escape and Sacrifice, I think, are both phenomenal tracks.
I'm
It's
glad you
worthy of
came
the
around
Grammy
to it.
nom. Of yeah, man. And it's funny that it's like it's a grower, but not in the sense that like usually a grower is an album you're like, about at first, and then it grows into you being like, no, that's a good album. This one's kind of like I was and I'm growing to realize it's pretty much a modern classic for dance music, which is kind of a wide range for that.
Right.
I think it's worthy of the Grammy nom it got. I wouldn't be mad if it ends up winning. And next up, I got LPGOB in my four spot with Light Places, man. I had this at five, bumped it up to number four after revisiting. It's just one of those albums that's undeniable, man. It's perfectly crafted, sounds beautiful. My only knock on it is that Forever and Today did not make it somehow. Other than that, no complaints whatsoever. And at number five, I got About Us by Lee Youth. This is my biggest homer pick on my list. It doesn't feel as obvious as my other picks, but I've been coming back to it a lot lately. I don't think it's a better album than his debut, but he's still two for two and in back to back years, which I think counts for something. This Never Happened is one of my favorite labels right now. He's probably my favorite artist on the label at the moment. So I'm just enjoying this run while it lasts. I did kind of cheat because I knew you were going to have Chemical Brothers and Rodriguez Jr. on your list, or else they would be in my top five. But I omitted them because I knew I'd get to talk about them anyway.
Right.
But that's the rest of my list.
That's a great list, man. You know, all of the albums that you mentioned are in my album of the year dance music playlist that I kept
Yeah.
going back to try to figure out throughout the year. I threw a bunch of stuff on here as it was happening. Right, the day
Hmm.
Skrillex released Quest for Fire, it came on here. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yep.
but that Last Link's album, Perfect World. I mean, that's hard to beat. I'm actually surprised that Elderbrook's record isn't on your top five.
I did really enjoy the Elderbrook one as well. Yeah.
I revisited that one, and it's really good, man. We had so much good electronic this year, John, and it's one of those things where we had our playlist was dominated by like a couple of record labels, and
Hmm.
the main one in spanning genres, but the main one of the main record labels that really dominated our playlist this year was This Never Happened, and Le Youth being on your top five is not surprising to me.
Not at all.
Because you've been digging his music like a lot this year and since his debut, and I mean, This record label just puts out banger after banger after banger, and they're not bangers in the traditional sense. John Summit isn't dropping any of these songs at his shows, but they're
No,
bangers.
not
Isn't
not that.
they're all so emotional, and they all just kind of hit that perfect melodic house sound that no other record label is doing it like they are. Just for real.
No, I can't remember if it was the Apple Music replay or Spotify Wrapped, but somebody's entire top five albums were all of the seasonal mixtapes that This Never Happened puts out. Nothing else, just spring, summer, winter.
Yep.
Respect to that person. Yeah, I believe the other label that dominated the year quite a bit would be Afterlife.
Yep.
Anima probably the reason that one didn't dominate quite as much as This Never Happened is there wasn't a lot of album releases within that label this
Right.
year, but their live presence has become pretty ubiquitous in modern dance music, and we can dive into that a little bit in the honorable mentions if you want.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do that.
All right, so what do you have just off the top of your head that was not on my list or your list? Feel free to include EPs, anything else you want to talk about.
All of the full moon releases from Hypnus Records, but mainly
Yes.
the Pianetti Sintetici EPs, the Esplora series.
Beautiful.
I've been listening to those all year, man. It is, if you put them all together, it's an album, but they didn't. They did, 3 different releases on 3 different full moons, and I've just been really digging that sound. It is unique, right? It's not techno, but it is techno. It's not dance music. It's not four on the floor dance music, but it's
Sure.
it's extremely interesting, and it engages me every time I listen to it. It's, all 3 of those EPs.
If you could build a label around an annual event, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good question, man.
You just
Around
mentioned that label. What's their name again?
Hypnus,
Hypnus Records puts out a new release every full moon, correct?
every full moon.
Yeah, I think that that's a fucking awesome idea. I'm trying to think of other things like other conceptual February 29th.
We do that
Every 4 years you get a new release from them.
every winter solstice.
Yeah, that's a good one, man. Northern Lights.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's some good ones. Please let us know your label ideas in the
Yes,
comments.
please do. Another runner-up for me was actually Kylie Minogue's Tension.
Yes, so this one didn't quite make my top five in terms of pop, which we'll be doing a little bit later on this week, but it could go in dance or pop. That album is full of fucking dance bangers, so I fully agree, man. That one should be on here, honestly.
Yeah. And then R.L. Grime released an album this year, and it didn't hit either of our top fives. I think that that's very interesting, and it's not to say that it's not a good record, because it is.
You know why it didn't hit our top fives, Brandon?
Why?
Because we didn't go to the live tour. I've seen some videos from that tour, and man, I think that the show for it really was what ties it all together. It's a very visual album, and I honestly think that that's kind of the missing piece. Maybe he should release like a visual companion for it, not just like a live show of it, because that wouldn't translate quite the same. But man, some of the visuals I was seeing were fucking awesome.
He can pull a Eras tour and sell tickets to the movie theater.
Please God, yes.
Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, I could keep going on, dude. We had Anima, right? Anima.
Yeah, Genesis.
Genesis. This album is interesting. I revisited it again this week just to make sure it wasn't going to be in my top five, and it's a very good album in my opinion. I think I rated it an 8, maybe a 7. But
Very good. Very good.
it's very good. But you know what's funny, man, is that as popular as Afterlife is, and as popular as Anima actually is, I think it's going to be a flash in the pan. I think it's this style of melodic. They're calling it melodic techno. It kind of is and kind of isn't, but whatever it is.
Is it the style, or is it just that it's formulaic?
It's a little formulaic, and I think I think that everybody and their mother will eventually expect more visuals at the caliber that we've been getting, and I think that I think it's just rife for future disappointment. To be completely honest with you.
Uh, I will agree. I feel like they've really locked in on the modern FOMO mentality a lot of people have. And I feel like when they post a video of like one of their visual moments in Tulum or whatever it may be, if you're a dance music fan or a fan of like live dance music festivals, that's one of those like, oh man, I wish I was there. Even though if you were really there, you're just going to be looking through somebody else's phone in front of you at what's really going on. But like
And another
they
vote for
have
this never happened because they don't allow that.
but they have locked in on something that, for instance, this never happened is not locking in on. They're locking in on these are fans of dance music. We're going to give them high quality content at a high rate, and they're going to fucking enjoy it. That it's a different thing that Afterlife is doing, and you're right. It might be a flash in the pan, but right now they're kind of on top of the world.
For sure. And that's not to discredit anything that Tale of Us has been doing. I've been a fan of Tale of Us for like 5-6 years at this point, and those two put on a great show. I actually just recently listened to their Coachella set again, and it is great. Like it really is.
It was
great.
fantastic. It was fantastic. We'll talk about set of the year in a second. I feel like look, maybe not in the same vein as a label, but in terms of a promoter, Brownies and Lemonade hitching their wagon to Knock and ISO this year has been huge for them. They've been putting out fucking shows on like warehouses across the world, fucking old abandoned ships and stuff. Like they're putting on shows, I think in an underpass in LA with one night. And like the visuals from these shows are very minimalistic, very raw, chaotic. They're creating an atmosphere and a FOMO type thing. I think it's really, really appealing to like the probably 18 to 25-year-old crowd. That seems to be like the ones going to those shows. But I think they deserve credit for the amount of people they're getting to go to dance music shows wherever they put them on at right now.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, I got a few honorable mentions for us. We got Real Cultural Shit by Channel Tress. So this one I feel like fell a little short of our expectations because it wasn't a full-length album, but it is in fact, if you go back, a Channel Tress EP, and it is very good. Again, not the LP we hoped for. Maybe that's coming next. He has been posting about new music coming, I believe, even this week. So we'll see where that's going. We got the It's Not a Phase project by Rez, which I really enjoyed these. She just releases music at such a fast rate that it's ever hard to sit with it for too long. Right. This was it was marketed or at least promoted as like a more punk EDM departure or a punk heavy version of her sound. And I feel like that was true for a single or two, but songs like Signal really just sound like classic Rez to me. I'm not going to complain about it. It's a great fucking sound, but I was kind of hoping more for something out of the box on that project. Great project nonetheless, though. A few others. You mentioned Genesis by Anima, Play by R.L. Grime. We had Together by AC Slater, which I really fucking enjoyed. You want 30 minutes of night bass? I'm recommending that album.
Yeah, man, it is good. That was also on my playlist.
Last honorable mention for me, Evolve by Subfocus. This is one of the most palatable drum and bass albums to come around in a while outside of Chase and Status's last year. I fucking love this album. Every time I go back to it or a song from it shuffles on, I have to like check and see who it is, man. I think it's really, really good. Did you ever circle back to this one?
Oh yeah. In fact, I play it I play it pretty often. I put on what's the song? Let me find it. 1 second.
Ready to Fly?
I'm not.
I Found You.
That's it. I think it's. Is it I Found You? Is it I Found You?
That's the one with Hala.
Yes, it's I Found You.
One. Yeah, love I Found You.
And I'll put that on, and every single time I do that at work, somebody's like, "Who is this?"
Yeah, I threw that one on the playlist this week. I'm sure you could tell.
Yeah, it's a good one, man. Yeah, I think it's very pop. It's a very pop drum and bass album. I think we're getting it's EDM goes in so many different phases, man, and I think we're getting some more attention focused towards sub focus or towards drum and bass rather, and
Yeah.
I think it's really popping off in the UK right now and other parts of Europe, and I think that's where it's always thrived. But I think we're getting some more reception in the States.
We definitely are. I believe Sub Focus posted about this a day or two ago. It could have been with all the Spotify rap data he was getting sent, but he was like, "Man, this feels like the biggest drum and bass has been in the States in a long time." So, yeah, I mean, great for those
Interesting.
artists, man. It's a hell of an album. I'm glad it's getting the attention.
Yeah, yeah, it should, and I think that it is not so. I mean, you put drum and bass in somebody who isn't ready for it. Like if you were to put a Caliber record in front of, or like a Spore record in front of somebody, and they've never heard
Yes.
drum and bass
Yep.
ever before in their life, it's gonna almost feel like way too much. But this is so like it's palatable, like you said.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, man, yeah, Spore put out a drum and bass heavy EP last year. And I think if the average person came across that versus this, it wouldn't be as much of a slam dunk of, oh, I actually do like this. It'd still be a
Right.
challenging for some people.
It's a
Where I
good
think if
ease
anybody
in.
listens to this or Chasing Status's last album, and they're even vaguely a fan of dance music, they're going to enjoy it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Okay, so I don't really have a worst of list this year, but I do have some that did not quite land. I think you'll agree with me that the Jungle album was kind of a disappointment.
Every time I've tried to go back to it, I keep thinking to myself, "This is not good," and I'm pretty sure that's what I said in my review of it, my original review of it. The voice is weird. The production is weird. It's just slightly slower than it should be. You know, it's just it's an odd record, man. And I am not going to stop following them, and I'm not going to
Oh,
stop
no,
listening to
man.
their older music. But we'll see what happens in the future, man.
I agree. It's a very odd record. Even the songs I like on it, I don't love, it's just it's kind of a weird one. Oddly enough, and I could be wrong on this at this point, but I think that it's streaming stronger than Loving in Stereo did, which could be a timing thing more than anything,
It's
but
interesting.
it's doing pretty well. Back on 74 is blowing up for how late they released it in the year and it kind of being like a third single. I think it's very interesting.
Good for
But
them. I don't agree, but good for them.
yeah, man. And another one you were right about that I think I was trying to give the benefit of the doubt at the time was that Subtract record that came out earlier this
Yep.
year. I enjoyed the swing, I enjoyed the chance he took with it. It didn't connect, it didn't land.
That's fair, man. That's fair.
Um,
I've got
and
one of
he's
those.
yeah, yeah.
SG Lewis. Uh,
Great one.
Audio
Yep.
Lust and Higher Love. I think going back to this album was interesting because it is good, and there's no denying that it's a good record. And I actually had the same experience that you had with that Subtract album, where I think I reviewed this very highly,
You did. Yep.
and I have gone back to it since, and it's good, but it's nowhere near Times. And what's funny is that
Mm-mm.
I couldn't really even tell you why. It's just like it's like an emotional thing or something, man. It's weird. It's weird. It's a weird
I
one.
felt it during the singles, man. Like there was so many moments where I was like, "Huh, this song has Lucky Day on it," and I'm not loving it. Like this song has so and so on it, or I don't know. It felt I don't know. It was one not narrowed down long enough. Like Times is great in that it's like 10 songs. They're all different enough but similar enough that they all work together. They're all very fun. This one has too many songs where you're like, this sounds a little bit like the last song. And I think he was
Right.
going for more of like a band sound similar to like Daft Punk did in their later careers on that album. And for the most part, I don't think it worked.
Yeah, I unfortunately I agree with you. I have it on vinyl. I purchased it on vinyl, and I don't think I've played it more than once.
It could be a grower though. That'll be
Could
an
be.
interesting one to throw on in like 3 to 5 years and see how it sounds. Having Fever Dreamer on vinyl is not a bad thing.
No, no, no,
Like,
no, no.
there's some great songs on the album for sure. Tovlo, killer song with Call on Me. But as a whole, as you said, not Times. All right.
Exactly.
Let's see here. All right, let's talk about singles really quick. I think
Okay.
it's obvious Rumble and Miracle are the biggest hits in the genre this year, but what are some of your other immediate favorites that come to mind?
Rumble obviously was insane.
Yep.
It still gets played pretty often. Man, I'm not entirely sure, to be completely honest with you. I think all of the singles from LPGOB's record were really good,
Yep.
and I think that getting skipping like a stone from the Chemical Brothers was
Hmm.
really great. That song is played in my house all the fucking time, probably at least once a day.
I can imagine.
Yeah, honestly, man, Rumble and Miracle stole the fucking year for singles. Oh, actually, you know what? What was it? It was Eternity. Eternity from Anima also stole the
Great
year.
song. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge one.
Yep.
So yeah, man, I really liked Where You Are by John Summit, Fine Day Anthem by Skrillex and Boys Noise,
Oh, that's the other
Sacrifice.
single, Fine Day Anthem.
Fine Day Anthem, incredible. Sacrifice by K5, Saving Up by Dom Dolla. I do not skip that anytime it comes on. Signal by Rez, I talked about that one earlier. The list really goes on, but there's a few lesser known tracks that I loved this year that we did not cover on the podcast. I threw them on the playlist this week. I See
Yep.
Colors by Disco Lines, Thinking of You by DNH, aka Party Favor and Bauer. Did you one get a chance to hear those, and did you have any like deep cuts that you wanted to shout out really quick?
I See Colors is a great song, man. I said
I'm glad you
this
gave it
came
the
on.
time.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
this came on the playlist, and I was like, oh yeah, yeah.
Love that
It
one.
really hit it. I did want to shout out the Drama and Flight Facilities
Oh
track
man.
"Dollar Short."
So fucking good, man. It is only at 585,000 streams. That is insane to me. That song is so fucking good. It should be way higher.
And it would be so silly to have this conversation without recognizing that Feed Me released an EP this year. Say Yes or
Mhm.
Say No is arguably the best track on it, and that was a fantastic single.
He also collabed with Kill the Noise once more on the song Mirage, which was on our playlist this week.
Yep,
Another fucking banger.
absolutely.
Uh, Chromeo and LaRue replacements. We didn't get a chance to talk about that one.
Yeah,
Another great one. Fuck man, there's been a lot of good music this year,
I mean,
especially in terms of singles.
it's kind of great to see Dead Mouse collaborating so often. He was so reluctant to
Mhm.
do that in the past, exception for like Rob Swire. But Res Mouse, we got a KX5 album and we got a Res Mouse single.
Which hopefully will lead into a Resmouse album sometime next year. That's my hope, at least.
I would fucking hope so, man. I really do hope so. And then look, man, we got a lot of great collabs this year. I Will Leave a Light On with Lane 8 and Le Youth.
That's a huge one.
That's a huge one, man. We got a John Summit remix of I Remember, and I
Yep.
remember I remember seeing this being released and being like, "There's no fucking way he let him do this," and he did.
Yep.
We got
Purple Disco Machine, Duke
yep,
Dumont with Nothing
absolutely
But Thieves on vocals. Dom
fantastic.
Dolla, Nelly Furtado.
Oh yeah, that Dom Dollar Nelly Furtado one was great. Yeah, man, there's been some great collabs this year.
I agree, man. All right. Two more quick categories before we wrap up this episode. For remix of the year, I am going Black Coffee's remix of Snow Allegra. Big surprise. Anything coming to mind for you?
Remix of the year. I actually had that one as my favorite, man. I don't want you to take it though. I actually did. I actually really did like the I Remember remix of with John Summit. Does the Fine Day anthem count as a remix? Because that sample has been
Sure,
used.
sure.
Let's go with that one. I like that
There's
one.
also a Fine Day sample on the Sub Focus album.
There is. There is. There
It's
is
a big,
indeed.
big year for Fine Day fans.
Yep.
All right, last category, live set of the year, which I think come down to three choices. You got Skrillex, Fred Again, and Fortet at Madison Square Garden, Skrillex, Fred Again, and Fortet at Coachella, and my personal pick, which is probably yours as well, Kenny Beats at Coachella. What's your pick, and are there any I'm forgetting?
You are forgetting a couple of them.
Hit me.
So Kenny Beats at Coachella is such an like it's an iconic set. And one thing that I actually have realized after going back to it again and again, have you gone back to it at all?
Yeah, a few times.
Every artist that he plays has played or been a guest at Coachella. It's like he
It's
took
fucking
us.
awesome.
It's like he took us through a Coachella journey. I thought that was fucking
It
cool.
felt like it in real time.
Right. It's like he took us on a journey. It's funny. I played that over the weekend to get people pumped up at work, and it ended. And I put on some other mixes and stuff like that. And a few hours later, someone was like, "Hey, can you put that first mix on again?"
God, I wish I could play that one at
Oh
work.
no, it's so good. My mix of the year is Roadhead at Glitz Festival 2023.
Wow. Okay. Fuck yeah,
It
dude.
is a fucking masterclass, man. He so getting some context from someone who was there. Apparently, he was booked after Oscar Mulero, who is a just a prolific DJ in the techno scene in Europe. He plays in the States every once in a while, but techno is kind of still niche around here.
Mhm.
And apparently he like got up on stage and was like pretty nervous and then just proceeded to decimate the entire crowd.
As he
That
would.
mix is on YouTube. It's my favorite mix of the year. I've gone back to it a number of times.
That's fucking incredible, dude. Roadhat and Kenny Beats. Those are your two mixes of the
Those are
year.
my mixes of the year for certain.
Dude, I fucking love that. All right, one last thing before we wrap up. What are you excited for slash hoping for next year?
So I am I am excited for Resmouse.
Yep.
I'm excited to kind of dive into drum and bass a little bit now that we're getting a little bit of bubbling in the underground. I said this about pop punk and emo last year. I'm really excited to dive into drum and bass and see the beauty that comes out of bubbling undergrounds.
I fucking agree.
And then I'm excited for LAPD to stop shutting down warehouse parties.
So Boys Noise can do a proper one in
So
LA.
Boys Noise
Finally.
can do a proper one in LA, which it did end up doing this year before
Yeah, he
LAPD
did.
started being fucking weird about it. But DVS1 got shut down this year, and it
Ah,
just
shit.
started a snowball of garbage. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that fucking sucks. I too hope the LAPD stop being bitches next year. All right. As of now, the only releases on my calendar are Grace by Zoo, which that is spin the chamber, Boris, man. That could be good, could be awful. And I also got Adult Contemporary by Chromeo, which I'm really excited for.
oh, I'm so stoked for that, man. Chromeo is they're always a good time.
Yep.
And I remember watching their Coachella set from this year, and it taking me back to when I saw them. They have this incredible stage presence, and they just dominate.
Yeah, dude. And the singles, I don't know. I think we might have talked about one of them on air, but man, they're really good. That album should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree.
We also got Nero, who have announced something is coming soon. We just don't know what yet. Obviously, we will be keeping an eye out for that. I assume it's going to be a new album. I think that's safe to assume. I know you're very excited for that as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, both of their albums are just fantastic, and once again, another year went by, and another year that I most definitely listened to their 2012 Essential Mix. One other thing I'm excited for is we have been starting to get some European festival announcements, and Justice is on there. So Justice is back, and I
Yep.
don't know if we're going to get an album, but we're definitely getting a Justice tour, or at least appearances in a city maybe not so near you, but you know, I'm excited for that, man. The speculation is that they're going to be at Coachella because they haven't announced anything in the States yet, and that radius clause is notoriously tough.
Yep.
But yeah,
Arguably the third best dance act of all time. I think everybody can agree that the scene is just better when they are active and in it. I really hope to get to
Certainly.
see them. I still have not seen them live and have
You
always
still
wanted
have
to.
not seen them
No,
live?
man.
Oh,
I have not
man.
got to DANCE to them live, and it drives me crazy.
It's okay. The one time I did see them, they were fucking late.
Yeah. No, yeah, they have cigarettes to smoke, man. I've seen their documentary. I know. They got guns backstage and cigarettes. Other than that, man, I really have no idea. I think we got a Fred Again album, probably is likely. Uh, I
I'm
could
like
see
not
an,
excited for that.
yeah, it's hitting a saturation point.
I
I could
had
see
Fred
another
again and
Skrillex
again and
album.
again and again and again.
Hey, the name warned you, man. In terms of hopes, Justice, obviously. Let's just go that whole group. Justice, Sebastian, Giselfelstein. I want all of them. All of them would be great.
Come on, French boys, stop smoking your cigarettes. It's
Yes,
time.
please.
It's time. I need something. I need something from Sebastian that isn't thirst. Not that that album's bad, but I need something else now.
Yep, I agree, man. Here's to 2024. All right. That does it for us this week. Join us next week as we continue our Album of the Year series by sharing our favorite pop albums of the year. You can find us online and at Instagram and Reddit. Just search Brandon's Face Pod. Don't forget to follow the playlist that the podcast is based on if you aren't already. It was full of a ton of great EDM singles last week. It'll be loaded with a bunch of great pop music this week. It's a great way to brush up on what we enjoyed. You can find the link to that in the show notes. We'll see y'all next week. Peace.
Peace.